You know the meme where it's like, oh, do a big yawn and then let your arms down, and the girl who's next to you, you like accidentally touch her on the shoulder. What's with all this beta shit? It's so weird, you know? If you like a girl and you want to touch her, there are like really easy ways, like very clear pathways to that, you know? Uh like it's like very straightforward. You know, you don't have to be a weirdo. It doesn't have to be like a trick. Yeah, the secret is to go up to her and go, "Where's my hug? Where's my hug? Hey, where's my hug?" And that's actually how you know, all contact with women should be initiated in that fashion. Yeah, classic move. You know, one of the greats, really. It's linked with being ironic all the time. You can't do a genuine gesture. You have to disguise it as something else. Yeah, exactly. All the time, right? I don't understand. Like, if anything, you'd think like the alpha male move or whatever would be to like be next to a... like, you can just ask, like, hey, you know, mind if I like cozy on into you or whatever, however you want to phrase it, you little Riz lords, you little devils, you. Sure, but I feel like oftentimes the social cues for the acceptability of physical contact are pretty obviously indicated if you just sit next to a person for a while, right? Like, girls aren't different creatures. If you sit next to a girl and she likes you, it's usually pretty obvious just from how she like places her legs, whether or not she's okay with touching you, you know? I don't know. Look, if you're in doubt, just ask. It's shocking how thoroughly men don't understand consent. Yeah, okay, the main issue is that, like, sexually, men are taught that they're the aggressors and women are the passive receivers of their sexual intent. And in that framework, the, like, predator-prey dynamic for sexuality, the idea that a lot of men have is that women don't actually like sex that much, or at least they don't like they can't admit they like sex. So the way to get around that is to trick them into wanting to have sex with you. And oftentimes one of the best ways of doing that is to circumvent their discomfort until a point where they're committed enough that they can acknowledge it. You know, I think that on some level, a lot of guys kind of fantasize about being with a girl in some kind of social setting, and you know, they like the chick's being normal or whatever, but the guy can kind of like slowly mac up on her to a point where eventually he's kind of like groping her or something like that, and then past that point, because he sort of tripped the invisible barrier, now she can indicate that she's actually into it, but she won't before that point. Like, the idea being, if you've got a hand on her thigh and you said, you know, like, hey, can I put my hand on your ass? She would say no. But if you had your hand on her thigh and then, like, over the course of half an hour, you kind of slid it down to her ass in a way that never really gave her a clear barrier to say no to, by the time it's already on her ass, now you've gotten far enough that she can admit that she likes it because you've kind of like gotten over that initial barrier, and now you're in the clear. This is, of course, completely psychotic and not at all how any of this works, unless your goal is to kind of like, I don't know, terrify women into sex, which a lot of people seem to think that is the goal. That is an insane way of thinking, lol. That is literally how pickup artists teach you to treat women, and a lot of guys think on that. Like, guys didn't learn to do that from pickup artistry. Pickup artistry is just a professionalization of pre-existing predatory trends that men engaged in to, like, get women, you know? Maybe this is too charitable, but I think some guys are just really nervous. Yeah, but a lot of girls are nervous and they're not doing this crap. At least they tend not to. You know, you just have to operate on the assumption that women are equally interested, potentially, not necessarily, but potentially, in being into you. And because they're capable of it, if they don't demonstrate that interest, that just means they're not interested, you know? It's that simple. You just you have to operate on that assumption, right? And some people will say, "Oh, but there are girls who like the chase. There are girls who like the you know, the feeling of being pursued or whatever." And you know what? Yeah, there are. But the right way to do that is to make sure it's all kosher first, because that's just a dynamic, right? That's not even just a girl thing. I've been with gay guys who are like that, you know? You have to make sure that's the right, like, it's like, okay, here, you know what? I'm even gonna level the, like, the farther end of the spectrum, okay? There have been a few girls that I've been with to varying extents who liked the playing hard to get thing. Now, personally, I don't like this. I don't like the playing hard to get thing. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. Be straightforward. None of this nonsense, whatever. But they liked it. It's a dynamic they like. But the only reason I knew that is because they told me. And them telling me that is an indication that they want me to play the other side of that dynamic. That's consent. If a chick says, yeah, I kind of like playing hard to get or whatever, so da-da-da, and you talk about it, they're indicating to you they are interested, right? They just want it to be played out, right? There's like a theater that they like sort of moving through. That's their thing, you know? And if that's the case, that's fine. Better a woman who admits that she likes playing hard to get than one who doesn't. But once that admission is there, you can talk about it and you can engage in it. And at that point, yeah, you're doing role play basically, right? At that point, you're already in. The problem here is just nobody has that initial conversation. And by the way, I don't think a lot of women really like the playing hard to get thing. This might be like an experience thing. I grew up in coastal cities. I grew up around a lot of queer people, whatever. But in my experience, even when I'm with straight women, for the most part, you can talk with a woman and say like, hey, you're hot. And she can go, oh, thank you. And then you can like lean in real close, you know, and then she'll like kiss you or you 50-50, you know, put some work in both of you. Okay. None of that. No being lazy. All right. And you can just, she like, they kind of melt, a lot of them. Like, I just don't think a lot of women play that hard to get. You just have to be nice to them. What? I'm saying don't be lazy, Dr. Strange. Be nice and be interesting. Very important. Women like seeing that you're attracted to them, not unrepentantly horny. Some women like the unrepentantly horny thing, but, you know, just talk it out. Just talk it out. Just talk it out. It's easy. And if a chick doesn't want to talk it out, then she's not worth your time, okay? If you're with someone and you like them, but any attempt to mutually navigate any conversation like that, she shuts down, then she's not mature enough to be fucking you. I'm sorry. Isn't body language a type of communication though? Yeah, but it's also extremely ambiguous, okay? Look, if you're at a party and, you know, everyone's having a good time and, you know, you're walking to the kitchen to get like another drink and there's a chick in front of you who you've talked to a few times and she pushes her ass against you and then like leans back into you or whatever, like, okay. There are obviously some points where body language is unambiguous enough that at that point, I don't think you're a fucking rapist to like lean forward into her or whatever, or put a hand around her stomach if she's like grinding her ass against you. Okay. I don't like, I feel like a lot of people think of this as some kind of like binary where on one hand, you're like a potential rapist. And on the other hand, you have to get like a signed consent form for every inch your hand moves up or down her body. And I just don't think that's true. I think that what you need to establish beyond a shadow of a doubt, very clearly, verbally, always verbally, okay, is general interest in moving forward. That's the thing, right? I'm not saying every single level of sexual interaction has to be sort of governed and dictated by explicit verbal consent, because in practice, literally no one does that. But the general interest and level of comfort is something that should always be very verbally clear, you know? So, like, even if you're with a person that seems pretty clearly interested in you or whatever, like, if you're... I guess the point that I'm getting at here is that, like, I would make sure verbally, if you're macking up on someone, how they're feeling moving forward, but I wouldn't think like, oh, I'm making out with this chick, I've got a hand on her side, I'm going to now explicitly ask, like, can I move it up this... Like, I feel like people get really reductive about this in a way that, I don't think it's people being disingenuous, I just think it's really, really difficult to, like, concretely explain everything. Yeah, it's about assuring verbally the general level of interest and comfort. And you know what? Okay, and by the way, I'll say it, okay? If you're like hardcore making out with somebody, okay, you're both adults, you know, we're all adults here. If I'm hardcore making out with somebody after a date or whatever, I don't usually ask like, oh, my hands are on you here, can I reach down and grab your ass? Because I'm 30 and I'm making out with somebody else my age, like, okay. But the critical thing here is the mutual, like, expression and confirmation of enthusiasm, you know? And if ever there's something that either person does the other person doesn't like, you make sure people are comfortable, because in an environment of comfort, people will tell you if they don't like a thing, right? That's the critical part. You're not trying to hedge your bets against literally everything you could potentially do or have done to you in any sexual situation. There are thousands of things. But if you know a person's comfortable, happy, and engaged, then you know they're like in a fair position to be clear with their interests. Does that make sense?